who's that guy? He scares me. And that's Shawshank Redemption.
The authorities are so corrupt in there that it's adds to the depression of the prison. And I think that was communicated really well, that none of those people think anything's out of the ordinary because they're on planet hell.
Right.
I just played Hadley like he hated everybody.
Right. It showed. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the One-on-One Show with Christian Harloff. For everybody listening on iTunes and the Podcast One app, if you're listening on Android or your iPhone, wherever it is, if you're listening to it, thank you very much. If you're watching it, thank you very much. The first episode was with Dan Fogler. That's out. That's gone. That's done. Thank you for everybody who left all the great comments and subscribed and left, ratings and all that. So this episode was episode number 2, and I had a chance to sit down for about an hour with the man himself, Mr. Clancy Brown. Clancy Brown, if you don't know the name right away, you will know his face right away. Now, I knew all this. The first thing that I ever saw that I said, oh, that guy is scary as hell, was Shawshank Redemption. But I started going through his catalog and looking how much this guy works, and not only as in a lot of live action films, but he's a very prominent voice actor. There's so much that he does that I couldn't even believe it. And then learning more about him in general was a lot of fun. He's a very nice guy. We talked. He talked about Highlander. He talked about Shawshank. He talked about his new movie that he has obviously coming out called Supercon, which comes out on the 27th of April. We talked about that for a bit. We talked about how I didn't even know how much of a Star Wars fan he was, about working in Rebels, working in Clone Wars, what he thought. He brought up Dave Filoni, which I thought was really interesting also. All of that. It's in there. So you guys, please go ahead and check that out. And I'm going to keep getting these guests, as many guests as I can, whether it's guests like Clancy Brown, or if it's guests like O'Shea Jackson, who's going to be coming in soon. Maybe it's someone around these parts of town, whether it's a John Rocco or an Adam Smith, who's behind the engineer booth over there, or Sinead DeFries. The sky's the limit. But you guys keep on commenting, share. Make sure that if you go to iTunes and click the subscribe and all that stuff, but that's enough. You get it. Go and listen to this interview. Watch this interview with Clancy Brown. It's something. All right. I am really excited here today. Welcome back to One-on-One with Christian Harloff for all of our iTunes listeners and obviously on Collider Video. Now, I have been a fan of my guest today for a long time, but I didn't realize how much of a fan when I really started going through his credits. And I was like, my God, he's been in so much and so many great things, and a lot of things that you wouldn't even realize that he was in. Well, you probably would, because his voice is so recognizable. Mr. Clancy Brown is here. Hello, Clancy. How are you?
Hi, Christian.
It's so nice to sit down with you.
I like your podcast voice.
I appreciate it.
Very different from the, hey, welcome to Collider voice.
Well, the bathroom's over there, sir.
Yeah,
You swing a left.
Swing a left.
I know. It's like you kick in right away. But it was when they had said that, would you like the opportunity to speak with Clancy Brown about the brand new movie with Supercon? I said, are you kidding me? Absolutely, please. Yeah. And we made it happen, and there's so much I want to talk to you about here today. One of those things is I saw a quote, just the fact, it was kind of a mixed quote that I saw from you. One was that you would say, why can't I play the good guy?
Yeah,
right.
I get that a lot.
You said that, but then you also switched it up that you said that your movies don't do well when you're the good guy.
It's true.
Why is that, you think?
I don't know. It's not my fault. It can't be my fault, right?
I don't think
it's not because I'm miscast.
No, listen.
No.
Dude, when you walked in, and just you could tell. And you read things. You say everything I've heard is that you're a nice guy. Everything I hear. I mean, we've never met except today. Maybe halfway through, you tell me to go screw myself, and then I have a different opinion. Who knows?
I wouldn't do that.
I don't
to your face.
On the way out.
Yeah, I just call up my people.
Yeah, and be like, never again.
That's the way we do it here in Hollywood.
Ain't that the truth? So let's talk a little bit. We're going to talk about Supercon for sure, but I want to talk about you. I want to hear about more. There was so much stuff that I learned today. Just some stuff that I read about you. And you grew up in Ohio, yes?
Yeah. Small town in Ohio.
And when did you leave Ohio?
Well, I left sort of left off and on through my middle school and high school years. I went. My pop got elected to Congress, and so he was trying to do we're going to be Ohioans and live in Ohio, but that's not practical after a while. So we all, by the time I was in high school, we moved out to D.C. full time.
You were in D.C. full time, okay.
And then I just kind of matriculated off to Chicago, and then matriculated out here, and
You went to Chicago because you and your mother was a musician, correct?
Yeah, she's a musician.
Your mother a musician, your father in politics, and then you discovered down the line that there was something you gravitated towards being a thespian, if you will.
Yeah.
What was it? What was it that you just kind of caught?
I sort of had the accident of a next door neighbor who was a savant, and he loved Shakespeare, and he kind of wrote me into it, and then I kind of fell in love with the plays, and then just had a bunch of mentors that I was lucky enough to meet, and found out that acting's really not just going up and acting like a fool. There's
more than just pretend
technique, and there's discipline, and it's pretty demanding, and it sort of hit me all in the right spot.
Is it with acting that when you because I went to theater school in Florida State, and
that's a great theater school.
It was great. And a lot of stuff that you would like you said, it's not just about pretend. It's about you learn more stuff about yourself. And you channel things inside of yourself. And I mean, just from the roles that you've played, I can't even imagine certain things that you've been able to channel, learn about yourself. And is that kind of one of the things that attracted you to in the beginning?
Well, it's never been a trip of self-discovery. I think, part of it was lazy. It's like, I want to be a policeman. I want to be a politician. I want to be a acrobat. I want to be this. I want to be that. I want to be a doctor. How could I be all these things? Oh, I know. I'll be an actor.
Right.
And so you kind of immerse yourself in whatever the field is that you're playing. You do your research according to what you need, and you become a bit of a dilettante on the subject for a little while, and then you move on to the next one.
So how does your dad, who's a politician, your mother, who is a musician, how do they take the news that you want to go and this was what you want to do with your life?
Oh well, they were completely tolerant of it. I was 20. Whatever, and just out of college, they say, let them blow off a little steam.
They said,
and then I'd come back and I'll go to law school or business school and whatever, or go to run the paper, or, run business, or run for Congress, or whatever the hell. I'll just get this out of my system.
Yeah, because your family ran a publishing company for a long time. Yeah. So they think you're going to go and do that. They're very they're supportive. You go and you like you said, you moved to Chicago.
Yeah.
What was Chicago like? I mean, how long were you in Chicago for?
Well, I went to school in Chicago at Northwestern.
Okay.
And so Chicago was great at that time. It was really quite a melting pot, quite vibrant, and Steppenwolf was just starting up, and there were so many great theater companies around, storefronts. All my buddies had started a thing called Practical Theater, and then they got lifted and taken to SNL, and then Steppenwolf debuted on Broadway, and the Remains Theater was knocking everybody's socks off, and Organic, and just like all these great places were just it was just great theater town. Still is great theater town.
Who'd you come up with that went over to SNL?
Julia and Brad and Gary Kroger and Paul Barros and those guys.
Wow. Okay, so I mean,
not a great period for SNL.
No, but it's still SNL.
They all learned.
Yeah,
especially Julia. She's doing okay.
She's doing all right for herself. And do you guys still keep in contact?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so but LA is really where you start to make your mark, you think, as an actor? Like as far as getting as far as getting the roles, because what was the first big one that you get?
Well, there was a bunch of films and a bunch of work coming through Chicago at the time.
Okay.
And then a movie called Bad Boys came through with
Sean Penn
and Isai Morales and stuff. And so I auditioned for that and eventually got hired as a local hire. And just before that came out in March, I think, I got evicted out of my apartment in Chicago. Wow. And it was a crappy winter, and I was sick and tired of being cold, and all my friends went to New York, and I called them up and said, what's the weather like there? And they said, it's cold as a witch's. And I said, forget that. I'm going where it's warm.
Yeah.
So
you just go, you don't know anybody.
Loaded up the Fury
and
the dog and just drove out. Yeah, I knew a few people out here.
You got crashing on couches and stuff for a little bit?
Crashed on couches for a little while.
That's kind of what happens.
Knocked around. And then on the strength of Bad Boys being released, I got an agent, and then just.
What was that process like on Bad Boys though too? Because you were doing you did a couple theater things before that, and you were in.
Yeah.
So when you're but then switching over to like that's your first big feature film, Bad Boys.
Yeah, first big role in a feature.
So you're on there too, and Sean Penn is got some clout on him at that point, yeah, or he's just kind of.
Well, I'm probably, but
Yeah.
I was unaware of that.
Weren't paying attention.
he was. What came out? Maybe Fast Times came out. Maybe it was
Right.
that other one.
He was
with,
like 82 around that time.
Yeah, 82, 83.
Right.
So Fast Times, he got noticed, and what was the other one with Tom Cruise and
Which
they were the soldiers.
Oh,
they were in the military.
Oh, that was
school.
87. That was the. Yeah, I know which one. You mean the one with Michael J. Fox?
Not Michael J. Fox. No,
which
no,
one
no.
is
It was with Tim Hutton.
Oh.
And
Man.
and
Okay, yeah.
Tom and Sean.
It's earlier. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name.
Yeah, and they're in a military school,
Okay.
and they're the
Wow.
school's going to be shut, so they.
And that's around the same time.
Right,
So,
and so Sean's he'd done Slab Boys, I think, on Broadway, and so he was the second coming.
Okay, and you've
He's
worked-
damn good. I
yeah,
mean, he was
you've worked
just-
with him twice now, right? Because were you on? I thought you were also on. I thought you worked with him a second time after that.
No, I didn't.
I apologize. I thought you did.
That's all right. That's all right.
I thought you were on Dead Man Walking.
Oh, that's true, actually. But he did do that.
See?
He's great in
All
that,
right.
but I didn't see him.
Okay,
No,
okay.
that was sort of a goofy thing.
But you were in the same movie
with Tim. Yeah.
Okay,
Tim,
so
yeah,
got my
yeah.
facts right. All right. So then that happened. You realized that the film thing. Let's keep doing it. But I think that for me, and I'm going to jump. I'm jumping a lot ahead here. The first time that and you get this a million times. The first time that I said, "Who's that guy? He scares me," and that's Shawshank Redemption. I mean, Shawshank Redemption's the movie, and there's something about what you do there because it didn't seem like just because you play villains at Highlander and all these things, but there was something more about Hadley. That role, he was ruthless, but he was also kind of a schemer, and there were things about him, and it felt like it was very real. Like that role, when you were getting into that role, did you feel that was going to be something? That it was. I mean, it's one of the best movies of all time.
Right, that's what I hear. The script was terrific,
Yeah.
and we all love the script. Yeah, but you never know how a script's going to turn out. And Frank Darabont, who wrote it,
Yeah.
and now he's directing it. He's kind of an unknown quantity, and he's got all good people behind him. He's got the A team shooting it and designing it for him, but you never know how it's going to cut together.
Right.
But the script was just so clear, and the source material is so clear. It's because Stephen King. So I think what was, and it's not just Hadley; it's sort of everybody. The authorities are so corrupt in there that it's adds to the depression of the prison, and I think that was communicated really well. That none of those people think anything's out of the ordinary because they're on planet hell.
Right.
Right, and there's no way out of planet hell.
Yeah, they're in prison just as
Right.
much as there's anyone else, and that place is in prison. Yeah,
Right,
for sure.
They're just sort of on top of the
Yeah.
other guys.
Yeah.
And I just played Hadley like he hated everybody.
Right. It showed.
He hated everybody,
Yeah.
even when he's trying to, scheme about his taxes and take advantage of he hates his wife. He
Yeah.
hates his accountant. He hates everybody. He just hates.
Does that sink in at all when you're playing that role? Like, how much do you? I mean, because the process of it. How do you deal with that kind of preparation?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Right. That particular role, not.
No, that one didn't really. Although the environment was very. I mean, we shot there in Mansfield,
Yeah.
Ohio, at the prison, so the environment did a lot, just naturally for everybody. And like I said, the script was so clear, and Frank was a terrific director. Very short sentences telling
Yeah.
me what to do and stuff, so that was good. But that one didn't carry around too much. I actually got married during that.
Really?
And honeymooned there in Mansfield. And,
Oh wow.
Yeah.
While you got married there, but you had met your wife before
I had met
that?
my wife before,
Okay, well,
yeah.
but during that time,
Yeah,
look at
during
that.
that time,
I didn't
yeah.
know that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Bring it back to Darabont real quick because you hear things about him. I mean, whether it was there was I don't know if you're aware or not, but during the Indiana Jones thing that he was writing Indiana Jones for a while, and then he was very open to the fact that George Lucas kind of took his script and no, and he believed he had a good script. Spielberg liked the script, and that would have been it. Instead, we got What Happened with Crystal Skull. I wasn't a big fan of Crystal Skull. I was curious about Darabont stuff, but I've also heard the Walking Dead thing. He's there for the 1 year, and then he leaves that. He's had difficulties, and he seems to be like one of those guys he can clash. And like you just said, he's talking to actors in like one sentence. And there are some actors, obviously like yourself, you take that and you just turn Hadley into this character you can't forget. Is it difficult, though, to work with somebody who's maybe not, and maybe he's not. Is he an actor's director? He doesn't seem like one.
I've heard that he's not.
Yeah.
He was fine with me. He's like a perfect director for me. And he's, I've only worked with him that one time, but I love the guy. I don't ever feel like I need much. And if I need more than, do that, don't do that, louder, slower, whatever, then I'll go and talk to him. Right. And there are actors, and they're great actors, that just love to talk. And I don't think Frank really likes to talk. He puts his stuff, I mean, he can, but after a while, it's like, it's time to shoot. But he puts it in his scripts, and he's such a good writer. Right. I mean, it's hard. I hadn't heard that story about Lucas. It doesn't surprise me. Yeah. Because Lucas
he likes to do his thing.
He controls what he controls, and he's the boss.
Until he sells it.
Yeah. My son, when my son he was young, he was moving to another school, and I've told this story a billion times, but he was moving to another school, and he was, not really meeting anybody. He comes home one day, and he says, "Dad, what's Star Wars?" Because all the kids were like crazy for Star Wars.
How old was he?
It was maybe kindergarten, first grade, somewhere around
there. My
there.
daughter's age, yeah.
Right. So, and I didn't let my daughter watch Star Wars and stuff. Well, my wife didn't let them, and so I just agreed.
Speaking the same language,
right?
Man.
But I thought, this is perfect. We'll let him watch it, and he'll become well. He just completely absorbed it. Yeah. Until one night he says, and this was before Disney bought it and came out with 6. Or 7. Sure. He says, "What happens in episode 7?" I said, "I don't know, honey. Why don't you write it?" And he said, "Oh, okay." I said, "You get in the bathtub, and I'll sit here. You tell me what the story is, and I'll take notes, and we'll do it." And it's it's this great little father-son thing. Sure. I said, "Okay, so what happens?" He goes, "Okay. First scene, Luke and Leia have a baby." I said, "Oh, honey, no, right. I don't think you can do that because they're brother and sister, and that's really not something." And he stops and he looks at me, covered in suds, and says, "I'm George Lucas. You write what I say."
No, really?
I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Lucas."
Wow. Oh, man, he was getting notes from George. That's awesome, too.
I think he'd seen the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah, totally.
But George is not an asshole. George is a very nice guy.
To which we can transition right into that. You have a lot of knowledge of that. Clone Wars, Rebels. I've got an opportunity to sit down with Dave Filoni and Freddie Prinze Jr. is a friend, Sam Witwer. I mean, you're in the Star Wars world, and it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you're a Star Wars fan.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So now, were you a Star Wars fan kind of before Clone Wars?
Oh, man, you can thank me for Star Wars. I was 17, 18 when that came out. I'm the guy that kept paying and paying and paying, every
See, I didn't know that about you. That's amazing. See, I'm a Star Wars. I have a Star Wars show here as a Collider Jedi Council, which we just talk Star Wars every week, and that's my thing. I knew you were in Clone Wars, obviously, and I knew Savage Oppressed, and I knew that you were in Rebels. I didn't realize how big of a fan you were. So that's even how much more the amount of work that you've done voiceover stuff is incredible, because if you look at, I was talking to my buddy John Roca, who's a voice actor as well. Mm-hmm. And what's unfair, I think, to a lot of voice actors sometimes is that they are known as voice actors, and a lot of them can't transition into live action. That's not the case with you. There are some.
Yeah, I think voice actors are the best actors out there, to be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why. I don't think it's any fault of theirs that they're not transitioning.
Not at all.
I think it's just that they get pegged by that, as a stupid industry does sometimes, because it's just easier.
Right. Well, because for a perfect example to me is Ashley Eckstein. I think Ashley Eckstein would be an amazing Ahsoka in live action.
Of course she would.
She would be amazing. I mean, she embodied her.
Nina Futterman. I mean, come on.
Right. There's so many. I mean, even Vanessa Marshall. I mean, there's so much. But the one thing, like you have, because you got into voice acting, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe really hardcore until after you had succeeded very much on film.
I had a on camera.
How did you get into the voice acting? What was
I always loved it, and I didn't didn't know how to do it. My wife was a journalist, and she made me take a voice class with her, and I didn't do very well in it.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I didn't do very well in it. The teacher didn't like me very much. I was trying, but she was, very critical. And then I think a TV movie I was in came out, and the next class, she just loved me to death.
Oh.
So, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? But I had
typical Hollywood shit.
Yeah, had to audition, and I think I got lucky because at that time there was, this happens every now and then in voiceovers. They say, oh, we don't want the usual suspects. The usual suspects are like the most talented people in this business, but they say, we want new voices. So I went in and I became a new voice. And I did a couple of shows, and then I fell in love with everybody that did it for a living, and begged them to use me. So I kind of learned on the job there.
I mean,
still doing it.
Yeah, I mean, look, SpongeBob, you've been doing that for forever. You got DC, Marvel, Star Wars. I mean, you've got. It's like a voice actor's dream to do all the stuff that you've been doing. It's just so much. Lex Luthor. I mean, now, true or false? To where you wanted to. You auditioned for Superman but got Lex?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was this?
Yeah, no, that's true.
It's just one of the even in voice acting they want you to be the villain.
I just went in there and did my Superman. I thought, this is going to be it. I can play the good guy. Don't have to deal with what people already think of me because they've seen me be Hadley or whatever.
Right.
So now I can go in and I can actually be Superman. And Andrea said, wow, that was a really great audition. Would you read for Lex? I was like, oh, jeez.
Kids, the villains just keep following you around.
Says, it's okay if you don't want to, And I said, no, I'll read for him. It's just that I'd really like to be a good guy. And she goes, well, you'd be a better Lex.
And you were. Do you think
you got to believe somebody like Andrea, though. She's the best in the business.
Well, but it's going back to that whole thing with the villain too. Again, we've known each other now for maybe half an hour, and I can tell you seem like a very genuine, kind of open gentleman. And I think that it's always the people that play the best villains that are like that. People that for some reason they can kind of tap into that because, like you said, the really good actors are the ones. This isn't what I do, and I want to try to go into this different path and try to do that. Do you think that that's the case or?
To a certain extent,
yeah.
I mean, but usually guys like me are the ones that'll put on the shitty makeup. They'll sit for hours in the chair. We'll do the thing that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I mean, not that leads don't do it, but it's just I always think of it in terms of. Serving whatever script it is, it's like you have to fill in this spot. And there have been times where you play villains that are not well drawn, but that are just kind of there to be the foil. But every actor knows that you have to have somebody that's at least a challenge, right? So it's fun in that even in those weaker scripts, you get to fill it in a little bit. Now, Shawshank, you didn't have to fill in anything; it was right there.
Right.
But stuff like Highlander, it was not all there, and so you kind of fill it in with whatever makes it happen, and you take your cues off of what's going on around you, and to me, it's much more of a. I don't know. And it becomes an ensemble thing.
Yeah.
Right. I think in terms of an ensemble and serving whatever script it is.
Well, when you have jumping back to what you said about the prosthetics, you actually got really sick doing prosthetics. Is it?
Well, I got sick. It was the glue that they were using.
Okay.
And back in the Stone Ages, they used this prosthetic latex.
Okay.
And for some reason. The production company bought a gross of prosthetic latex that wasn't, the best.
Right.
They were saving $1.
Okay.
And we used a lot of it, so they probably saved a lot of bucks. But what it didn't have was a chemical in it to neutralize the ammonia that is used to. I learned a lot about it.
Sure you did. Yeah.
So when you take a latex from a tree. You have to add some chemicals to it in order to preserve it. You have to add an ammonia to it, and then when they take it and process it for actual use on prosthetic limbs, they add something that neutralizes that ammonia, because the ammonia then just burns your skin eventually. So that's what happened to me. They had latex that didn't have this ammonia taken out, and so I had like a diaper rash all over my face for the longest time. But
that's the actor's goods. That's the actor's goods. You don't want to mess up.
Right, but nobody could see it because it was under makeup.
Right.
So, being the trooper that I was and young in the business, I didn't say anything for the longest time, and it got really bad.
Okay, how bad? Like what?
It was like my face was burned off for a while.
Wow.
Like
well, that's what I mean. Like after, for the job they can't notice, but that's your money maker. That's what you got. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, I was indestructible. 22, 23, 24-year-old.
But it sure made you hesitant doing it again, though. I'm sure.
It just made me pay attention more.
Yeah.
It didn't really make me hesitant because that stuff is great. I mean, I kind of miss it now because everything's done digitally.
Okay.
Which is great. When I did Warcraft, I just love the fact that I didn't have to put on makeup.
Right.
But at the same time, it would have been cool to put on a suit and be that buff and huge.
They're going back to it a little bit, going back to Star Wars. They're going back to it a little bit. I mean, I think that there's a mixture of both, and I think that that's something that I actually...
That's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Right? Because both things are...
A mixture of both. I mean, look, The Force Awakens had a lot of digital effects, obviously, but I mean, it was going back to those basics that I also thought made it pretty special again to do those types of costumes. You look at what Simon Pegg did and dressing up and things. I think you're right. I would love to see more of that, and I hope more of that happens. Now, let's talk about, because we're talking about all these things, whether it's Highlander or, even we didn't talk about, but Super Troopers and all the Lex Luthor, all the DC stuff, Marvel stuff. You're very, I'm sure, used to the Comic-Cons and going to these conventions and things of that nature. So when we transition here into your movie that's coming out with Supercon, that it has to be a lot of familiarity as you go into that, a tad bit. Not who you play, obviously, in the movie, but I hope not.
No.
Yeah. So going into, was that something? How many cons in general, besides this particular thing, how many cons have you been to in your life?
Honestly, I only go to ones that I'm invited to promote something.
Sure.
I've never gone as just my own person, and not because I don't think it's valid or it's worthwhile or anything. It's just that the way that the movie is set up, it's Supercon. It's a bunch of celebrities that sit there and sign pictures and do things, and that's how they make their dough. That part of it I've never done.
Okay.
Just because I've always been so busy, and there's always something else that I'd rather do.
What's funny about that is like there are some people that can say that. I'm like, really, you don't have any time? You don't have any time. I look at your list and I'm like, I don't know how. There's got to be 4 of you to do the amount of stuff that you do.
No, it's just never been a priority. It will be one of these days, but right now it's I got kids at home, and I got I'd rather go to a basketball game than or a school play.
Who's your team?
Go.
Who's your team?
Whoever my kids are playing.
Oh, okay. Got it. That basketball team.
Well, in that sense,
yeah.
The Dodgers. I love the Dodgers.
So you've become LA, kind of LA based.
Yeah, no, I'll still cheer for the Reds. I still watch them when I can. I have to watch them, the Reds now, because I can't get the Dodgers on TV, so I watch the Reds. But I go to the Dodger games.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am too. I'm a Yankees and a New York Giants football fan, and it's like I'm looking at the Rams, and I'm kind of
they're good. I got tickets to the Rams too. They're fun. They're fun. They're
fun team. I went not too long ago, and it was just like, and at first, my brother who
horrible place to watch football though. That Coliseum.
It's a dump. It's a dump. It really needs to be fixed. Come on, let's go. You're not kidding. You're sitting on a bench with people, and just like I've learned more about the guy that I was sitting next to than I know about my wife. But anyway, jumping back into the Comic-Con scene, because you've gone, like you said, you've gone there to promote. Did you go for Cowboys and Aliens? Is that what you went for?
We went for Cowboys and Aliens, and whatever's going around SpongeBob will have us down sometimes. Right. Usually it's down at Comic-Con in
San Diego.
I've not done the cons around the country. Sure. I think I went to Denver once for something. But it's become, in my lifetime, it's become an industry all its own.
Right. Oh yeah.
I can remember the first one I went to was a Star Trek convention, which had a separate table for another TV show that I was doing. Right.
Yeah.
So now it's morphed into It's morphed into what it should be, which is a fan-generated
It
thing.
is, but it also become very industry heavy. Because
totally, right.
Even more so, like, so I worked for Joe Silver for a while.
Yeah.
I worked on the Warner Brothers a lot. I was there for about 3 years, and when I was there, my last year was like 2007 or so, but like 2004, it's really when Comic-Con started to
become right
what it was more. I remember more the industry going there, and there was more people. And it's funny, you know, one of the first things that I saw, the first Comic-Con I ever went to was with my ex-girlfriend. I wasn't there for the industry. They showed a pilot and of this show that they said was going to be this big, huge hit, and it was all these fans were out there, and it was Lost. Yeah, and it was. I remember that when I went there, and we'll talk about Lost in a little bit. But I just remember then I started hearing all the agents were starting to go there now, and the producers were going there, and they were showing us. It's become more industrialized.
Right. It's become, but it didn't used to be.
No.
Right. It was the last thing you would catch an agent or a manager or an executive at. You know, that was just for that. We don't. You know, who cares about those people until the geeks took over, thank God.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And
so these people go down there, they're still out of place. They're still, it's not Con. You're not going to Con. You're not going to Toronto Film Festival. You're not going to Sundance. You're going to Comic-Con.
Right.
You're going to convention. You're going to a fan thing. These are not critics. These are not makers. These are the people that you need to have in your audience.
Yeah.
And if they don't like it, you're toast.
It's the truth.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's what I like about them. You
Yeah.
know. So we have Supercon.
Yeah.
And Supercon is one of these smaller cons, and our heroes are Ryan and Maggie and Russell and
I got Russell and
the other guy,
John Malkovich.
John is definitely
Right,
one of them.
right.
He's definitely one of my heroes. But so and it's kind of like Ocean's 11 meets Galaxy Quest, and that weird
Meets Mallrats too.
Meets Mallrats,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. See, so have you seen it?
Yeah. I've seen
Oh,
it.
great!
Yeah,
Awesome!
yeah.
So it's that kind of crazy.
Stay away from
thing.
barbecue sauce.
And, right. And Adam King is kind of a conglomeration of all the bad stories that these writers had witnessed or heard about over the years, because they're fans, they're geekheads, and so they've been to these things, and so it's not supposed to be anybody, which I want to make very clear. It's not even though the guy was the captain of a starship and then was a hit cop show. It's not Shatner. It's not Shatner, and it's not Bakula. Who was the same thing.
Yeah.
So circumstances are similar, but it's definitely not their stories.
Yeah, it's funny you
Right?
say that. I mean, when you say that, I go, oh yeah, there's the comparison. When I was watching it, I didn't even.
Right.
You're not doing like an impression of Shatner at all.
Hell no. And those guys are the sweetest guys in the world, and and appreciate their fans more than anybody. This is sort of bad behavior of all sorts of people that probably aren't familiar with the protocols of cons.
Right, and what's funny, what I liked about it also is that I was worried anytime I see these, because as a geek, I always get worried when I see these things that they're maybe going to take shots at the fandom, and
Right.
it's not that.
Good.
It isn't. I mean, your character certainly does it, but he's supposed to.
He's a dick.
He's a dick, and he's supposed to do that. But no, I think that it was there's the speech that and I'm sorry, I forget the actor's name who was in True Blood, and he's kind of like the Ryan, and Ryan is talking to Malkovich, and he's telling him about the reason why, and let's do it for the fans, and I liked that, and I liked overall what they were doing. There was still the scheme for themselves, and then Maggie, who that's where I got the Clerks thing from, not Clerks, Mallrats portion of it, because she reminded me of the girl that was doing the novel in Clerks, and then they're working together and her deadpan stuff. But it's that dynamic. But it's watching you and seeing again you doing a different spin of a villain, because you're not really ruthless. You're just, like you said, a dick.
No, he's just a putz.
He's a putz.
Yeah. He's just past his prime.
Yeah. It's true. It also, it also reminded me of a bit of like when what's the one? It's Shooter McGavin did you ever see Happy Gilmore?
No.
Oh, you should. Yeah, it was like there was this like that thing about that the guy that's been there before, and just this kind of cocky thing. Get out of my face! I'll charge you $75 for it. And how did you get involved with this project?
Golly, where was I? I was actually at the Edinburgh Film Festival, because they released the 4K version of Highlander, And so, and they lured me out by making me a member of the jury there. And I was there with my family, and my agent sent me this script, and it was laugh out loud funny. And I had been sitting in dark rooms. When you're on a jury, all you do is watch films.
Yeah.
And these are all, European. We'll never see them. They're all very dark, most of them. There's nothing actually.
You needed to laugh.
Them. Yeah. And they're brilliant. Some of them are just brilliant. There was an Icelandic one that was just like so depressing, but so gorgeous and so well done. And I'm dying for some kind of relief, and I start reading the script, and I'm laughing out loud. I couldn't stop laughing, and I said, I want to do this. And he goes, well, you have to leave as soon as you're done and come to New Orleans.
Oh, they were shooting that fast?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I said, all right, I'll do it. So,
Yeah. How long was the shoot?
about a month.
Oh, that's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, and again, it seems like you had a blast. And were you laughing as much on set as you were reading the script?
Good God, yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
And so, all right. So for people who want to find the movie, it's streaming. Yeah.
I think what's the release? There's my girl. What's the deets on the
the release is streaming?
on Supercon?
April 27th.
27th.
Okay, great. So April 27th.
Streams, but it's also got a theatrical, right?
Same day. So April 27th. Check out Supercon. Especially this audience here this is your audience. This is your audience.
It's fun. And there's lots of good movies about cons.
Yeah.
It's ripe.
It is. Well, the first time I ever saw it explored, and I actually think it helped to the popularity of Comic-Con in general, was in Entourage. When they had like this whole thing on Comic-Cons, and I think that the show was at its peak at that time, around the same time we were talking about before, with 2004, the popularity. So you're right, it is right, especially with every con that they had in there. There's so many of them, whether it's the San Diego one, Disney has their own convention now, all of these different things. So April 27th, Supercon. Make sure you check it out. But I wanted to jump back into Star Wars with you also, because
let's do it.
Have you, and I
had a great segue. I was going to talk about fanboys.
Please, yeah.
No, I mean, just,
the movie, the film?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had Dan Fogler on last week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I was talking to Dan last week, and Dan was on. We actually, it was the one thing we talked about Star Wars, but we never got into it because Kyle Newman, who's been on the show a few times on Jedi Council as well, that was such a different time we were in Star Wars at that time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It wasn't con heavy, but like those were con characters.
Yeah.
Right. Those were. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got someone working in the office here. But Star Wars, we've got Rebels just wraps up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that first before I ask you my other. What was that experience like working on Rebels?
Well, Filoni should be directing everything Star Wars.
We
right?
we're gonna get along here.
I mean, the guy's just. I love the fact that they're letting these new guys direct these movies.
Yeah, yeah.
But Filoni's brilliant. Filoni's and don't ever tell him I said that.
I won't.
But he knows the world so well, and he knows what can and can't be done just instinctively.
Yeah.
Right. That you would not have to spend any time with the book that way, right? With making sure that you're not violating anything.
Sure.
Because he's got that cred. If he did direct something, and he would be able to write the canon himself,
right?
Because he got that much credibility with fans and the fandom, but also the knowledge to back it up. So when Dave called and said, come and do this, I said, absolutely, whatever you want. But it also had Henry Gilroy on it.
Gilroy, yeah.
And I love Henry. I love them both. Right?
Yeah.
They're a good match together.
So it didn't matter what the role was.
Didn't matter what the role was.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I played like this Santa Claus character,
looking
character.
Yeah,
and I kept teasing him like, when you kill me, you should have me get stuck in a chimney. But I wasn't as intimate with Rebels as I would have liked to have been. I think it's great.
Is it because you're a good guy? Is that why?
No, it's just that he didn't show up that often, right? And I didn't get the scripts, and they didn't do the arcs the way they did in Clone Wars.
It was a different type of thing.
Yeah.
When they switched over from the Cartoon Network into Disney, it was, and they also went a little. Obviously because I guess it was on Disney Junior, they went a little lighter because they went dark in Clone Wars a few different times.
Yeah. And it was fun. And the more complex the story, the greater the arc was. And so you did have to keep track.
Yeah.
I didn't keep as much track in Rebels. Sorry to see it go, because I love doing it, and I love all those guys that were doing it. But I can't wait for the next thing, whatever the next thing is.
Well, speaking of the next thing, because here's something that I'm hoping happens. Because it was announced that Jon Favreau, who you've also worked with, Jon Favreau is going to be executive producing the live-action series that they're going to have streaming for the Disney, for Star Wars when it comes out. Rumors are that Dave Filoni, because of the relationship that they've had, because Favreau was a voice on Rebels, voice on Clone Wars, that Filoni might be involved in that somehow.
Oh, I hope so.
I mean, if there was ever a time for you to be on a live-action Star Wars, it's that television series.
Do the job I have for both guys.
In a heartbeat.
I wonder, though. I wonder how Filoni's going to... I wonder if Filoni would make that transition. I mean, I know he wants to, and he'd be great at it, but...
You think it might just be a rumor?
Well, no, there's just limitations to it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're working animation... You can think up anything you want and draw it, and there it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about Dooku's castle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was extraordinary.
Yeah.
You know, what planet does that live on?
Right.
Where are you going to find something like that here? I guess you can do it digitally now, but it's not. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm just curious with him, because I happen to agree with you 100%. One of the big, I wouldn't say a rant, but one of the things that I kind of went on is what I think Marvel does so well when they have Kevin Feige as their overall head and creative and everything too. I think Kathleen Kennedy is an extraordinary producer. I really do. I think she's an extraordinary producer. My personal opinion, and what the hell do I know? I'm just a fan. My personal opinion is I'd love to see Filoni as the head of creative over there, running the whole narrative of all the way through from the animation to the films to everything, and be that kind of voice for her to help her with other stuff too. That's what I personally would like to see.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
But you know,
they should hire me.
Would he do that? I mean, isn't he more Sergeant Rock than Eisenhower or Bradley? I don't know. I
guess you know him better than I do.
He might be a trench guy.
I don't know. I just, there's something about him. I think he's got. I think he does have that thing in him. I mean, like I said, you've worked with the man. I've only sat down and interviewed him, but like I think that it's just something
but in that world, there's nobody better to trust.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, and he's flexible. He'll he talks about going and pitching George ideas, and George says, "No, we're not doing that."
Right.
And he says, "Okay, fine, we're going
do something else."
And then George gives him some impossible task, like let's bring back Darth Maul.
Right. Which is insane. Right.
All right, I can figure this out.
Right. Did you have a chance to meet with George at all while you were over there?
I met George a gazillion years ago.
Okay.
I haven't ever seen him since, but I met him a gazillion years ago in San Francisco. I was doing a thing for KQED up there called Corridos.
Okay.
Corridos, and with Luis Valdez and his group, and Linda Ronstadt was in it. And at that time, I think Linda and George were an item, or at least knew each other.
Sure.
And so George came down to the sets there at KQED, and everybody met him. And I was like trying not to be
geek out.
Oh yeah, I was trying not to lose my lunch,
Wow.
which maybe I played it too cool because I was right in the wheelhouse for Darth at that moment. And
oh, were you?
No, I was not considered.
Okay,
I'm sure.
Okay. Did you ever audition for any Star Wars movies?
No,
you haven't. Really?
Not that I know of.
Okay, that's
Maybe
right through
the hell
right.
knows.
People watch us something too. I want something I've been listening to as it's going, and you tell me. Did you not have a great time on Highlander?
No, I wasn't a fan of the producers very much.
Okay, how come?
I don't want to get into
That's
it.
Fair.
One of them's dead, and they don't.
Oh, that's fair.
Anymore,
Okay.
So it doesn't really,
Just
matter.
wasn't a fun.
I did have a good time, but just not with the bosses.
Understood.
And I liked Russell. I liked everything about it except those bosses they weren't my favorite people.
So, do you think now, with the way that the industry has changed and new people come into play, and do you think it's a franchise that could be revisited? I mean, I think they are doing it again, but I mean,
I hope they do.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great for them to do that.
Okay, cool. So so they'd have your.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, man, that would be.
That'd be pretty cool.
I like they're talking about Batista to play. That'd be great.
Yeah, like the updates. I think that's so. Where do you stand then? Because I have a mixed opinion on it. Sometimes I think there are certain movies that shouldn't be touched, and other times I think there are movies that are ripe for remakes and for redos, and I think Highlander is one of those. And I think that you agree. Where do you stand on like the remakes and the reboots and stuff? Do you think sometimes they should leave it alone?
Sometimes they should leave it alone, but I don't think you do Wizard of Oz or
Godfather,
right? Godfather,
right?
Right. I mean, I don't think you redo Shawshank.
Better not.
Some things are good enough.
Yeah.
Some things are just good enough the way they are. But something like Highlander that actually could have launched a really good franchise, but that got blown. You should take another swing at that.
Yeah.
Because that's a great world.
Yeah, I agree with you. And they also just, from another thing around that same time, I don't know if you saw it when it was out back in the day, but Last Starfighter, which they just announced that they're finally doing.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, but last week they said they're gonna remake it. And they're gonna do it. Like that world, that world fits for it. Especially now with Ready Player One that just kind of came out. It kind of fits.
Have you seen that?
Ready Player One? Yeah, I did. I did see it. I think that. So my thing with Spielberg, I think Spielberg's still been on point when it comes to whether it's The Post or, Bridge of Spies, which I didn't love, but it's still he's just a brilliant filmmaker. He's one of the best of all time. But it's the bigger blockbusters that I felt the magic really hasn't been there lately. It was there.
It was there?
I felt it. I thought it was there. And I don't even think you need to be a video game head. A lot of the pop culture stuff was fun, and it added into it. And I think from hearing everything that you're talking about, as far as we seem to speak the same language when it comes to geekdom, I think you enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I think you can tell when Spielberg's enjoying himself, or when his heart is. I should say when his heart is in it. Like Schindler's List, you could tell he was completely invested. And maybe he wasn't enjoying himself, but he was completely invested.
Right, definitely invested. Well, he used to have to talk to Robin Williams on the phone to get himself, very similar to what you said when you read that script. Yeah. He had to talk to Robin Williams to cheer him up and while he was on set. Yeah, which is crazy. Have you ever worked or met with Spielberg?
No, I came really close with Lincoln.
Oh, okay.
And I think it came down to the fact that I would have been taller than Lincoln.
Oh, okay.
if they had cast.
Right. Okay.
So I couldn't do that.
Yeah. Well, there's so much that I was blown away by all this stuff. I knew how much you'd been in, but just how much and how great of a career that you have.
Complete accident.
Not really. Not really. You can say that you land into something, the first couple things, like, I got this movie with Sean Penn, but you got to make it your own, because, there's so many people that, like, you got to stay level-headed. You got to stay, look, you're a family man. You've done your thing, and that's important.
Yeah, that's all. That's the only thing that's important.
Yeah.
Supercon, I love Supercon. That doesn't mean everybody's going to love it. Right. I love Starship Troopers when that came out. Nobody loved it when it came out. It's like
cult stuff. Yeah. Shawshank didn't even crush it.
Shawshank didn't do business.
No, I remember when I saw that movie at a dollar theater in Florida, and everyone was talking about Forrest Gump. Right. And everyone was talking about Forrest Gump, and I remember I was like, I want to see this movie, and I was very young, but I wanted to see this movie, and I saw it, and I couldn't believe that nobody else was talking about until the Oscars obviously came along, and then everybody started talking about it, and now it's on TBS probably right now.
Which has its own channel.
It really does. Before I let you go here today, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and thank you once again for sitting down. Nice to meet you too. I do want to talk about, because the people in the audience would kill me if I didn't bring up Lost.
Okay.
Yeah, because Lost was, didn't have fun on Lost?
No, I wish I could tell you something. I know, it was 2 episodes. I had no idea what was going on.
Well, you didn't know what was going on at the time?
No idea.
Oh, really? They don't give you,
Not
they just say,
really.
Who directed those episodes?
Oh, you would ask me that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll edit it in with your voiceover of the.
Who was the dude that was he was the director that was also the producer?
Was it Lindelof?
No.
Okay. Burke? Maybe, I don't know, but nonetheless. All right,
I'm embarrassed I don't recall.
Okay,
because I just worked with him on Carnival, and he did the second episode that I did in Lost, where the guy kills me.
Right.
But I hadn't been watching it.
Okay.
Because I had little kids at that point, and by the time Lost came on, I was fast asleep.
Sure. I envy that. I have a 6-month-old.
Get used to it.
Yeah,
Prime time goes away.
I know.
So I didn't really know what was going on. I went to do it because a lot of people had gone from Carnival over there to Lost, and so they called me up to do it, and I loved doing that first episode. I thought with the interrogation and stuff. When they brought me back, that's when I had no idea why I was brought back, and I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know the mythology of the show, which I probably should have. So I can't really. Can't really inform it the way I would have liked to.
I'm talking more about like just the process alone, because then
it
you
was
find
great.
out,
They were all pros.
Yeah. Okay. So then after this thing, that's another one, because what was that? I forget which season that was, but when it becomes like the phenomenon that it is Lost. Is that another one to where, like you said, just sometimes. And that's okay. Sometimes a job's a job. You have the job, and I was on Lost, but it's really, like you said, 2 episodes of Lost.
Yeah, it was a good little thing. And it was 2 scenes where the torture rendition had just come out, and they did a little episode about that. And Saeed, is that the guy?
Yeah, Saeed. Yeah.
Saeed had a story about that, and that's when they were in everybody's backstory, and that was cool, and I thought that was really fun. And then when they brought me back, must have been the 3rd episode. At that time, I think it was still sort of building, and then by the time they brought me back, it was Lost with capital letters.
Right.
And I think people were
obsessed,
enjoying it a little too much. I think there had been some gossip. Right, it'd become one of those properties that become more than the story.
Yes, like same thing. Like even with there's certain sitcoms, like it happened with Friends. After a while, like people just keep talking about, like it becomes less about the show and more about the pop culture phenomenon that it is. Okay, so I'm going to ask you the most generic question in the world. Favorite role that you've ever done? Favorite role you've ever done that you?
Adam King.
well, let's say that hasn't come out yet. Favorite movie that you've ever done that has not come out in theaters? How about that?
Oh, golly.
Like, and it can be even that you enjoyed working on. Maybe not even necessarily the.
I'm really enjoying playing this. Attorney General on Billions right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's a lot of fun because those guys can write. I love doing things where guys are writing great scripts.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
So it's fun. It's fun to do that, and it's all very friendly because I know Paul from years back, and it's just a good group of guys. Yeah. I'm enjoying that very much. Is it my favorite? I don't know, man. You'll bring something up, and I'll be, well, no, that was actually really fun too. So.
I like that you said the Super Troopers. We had a lot of fun doing.
That was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you. April 27th is when the movie comes out. And the fact that I found out that you're a Star Wars head like myself, I liked you even more.
You can thank me.
I am thanking
I'm the guy.
You spent it all. That's why you're living on the couch.
Me and my guys, we made Star Wars.
Well,
George should come up and thank me. I shouldn't be begging him for it. You're just going to thank for my millions.
You're the guy that spent all that money.
We were the pre-con people that made that movie.
Did you wait online?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. Did you see?
I skipped school.
Really?
Yeah.
How many times did you see it in theaters?
Not triple digits, but certainly double digits.
That's great.
And then when I first moved out here, it was on HBO every other show.
Right.
So just sat there and watched it on HBO.
Which is your favorite Star Wars of all time?
The first one.
The first, the New Hope, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I'll watch it now and I'll get teary-eyed.
Wow. All right.
Revisiting it with my son was just, he was like looking at me like, what is the matter with you? It's just, I knew he was his dad.
How old was your son when you watched it with him the first time?
6.
See, my daughter's 6, and she is so into all this stuff. But like you said, my wife right now wants her to chill out and wait until she's like 7 or 8,
I
a little
think
bit
that's
more.
Probably good.
I know.
8 or 9.
I know.
7 or 8 or 9.
But it's like you said, I want to share all this stuff with her, and I want to do I love Star Wars. I love it, and she knows so much. Like even we showed her this picture, and someone's also like, I don't know who that is. She's like, Cad Bane.
Read the stories.
Yes, we do. She does. She's got a ton of them that she does. So it's just a matter of my wife, especially with blasters and all that stuff. She wants to kind of, understandably, wants to pull back on it for now. But I'm like, when she's 7 or 8, she's getting crash course. I'll tell you that.
But it's not all blasters.
It's not all.
That's what's so wonderful. You have that elegant sword play. You have,
Well, the Force.
And there's no blood.
Right in the books.
Everything's cauterized.
Yeah. Except in New Hope. In New Hope, when he slices the arm off in the original cut, there's blood coming out of the arm and out of the socket. Like when Obi-Wan slices off the arm.
That's right.
There's the blood there. Yeah, that's the and because that's the last time ever Saber's.
But is it blood or is it just kind of?
Maybe they spilled something on the floor.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's an alien. It's
milk.
not really
right.
blood.
Mr. Clancy Brown, thank you once again, sir. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I hope you have another. You will have another movie coming out probably in 2 or 3 weeks. So please come back and talk again, guys. Check it out on the 27th. It is Supercon, and thank you again. That was it. That was the interview. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're joining us for the first time on Collider Video, hit that subscribe button, like, comment, do all that stuff. And remember, this is also on iTunes. If you're listening to iTunes right now, pull over and then rate it, subscribe it, do all that stuff. Hit pause on the treadmill for a second and let us know what you think about these shows, and we will continue to make more of them. You can find all your favorite shows from Collider on iTunes on the Collider Podcast Network. Thank you very much. See you next time.